Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fire These Times podcast. I'm your host, Leila, and with me I have two guests from Lebanon, Abir and Serge. And today we want to talk a bit about the situation in Lebanon, given the conflict there, and also to highlight some of the amazing solidarity initiatives that they're involved in, because I'm sure many of our listeners will be wanting to know how they can support in the current situation. So I'll hand over to you guys to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Abir. It's always a bit awkward for me to introduce myself. I'm sorry, but so I'll introduce what I do now. Basically, I started with a friend the Hostel Beirut project, and I currently manage the hostel as a worker cooperative, and that we also run as a communal as a collective space, basically. Yeah, this is what I do, and thank you for hosting us.
Thank you for coming, Serge.
It's beautiful to see you, even if it's through a screen.
Mm.
Yeah. My name is Serge. I am from the north of Lebanon, currently moving around between the north and Beirut, and a lot less in the Bekka, where I usually live. The project we work on is a farm, so I'm kind of a farmer, let's say 20% farmer, 80% lots of admin stuff, let's say, and the networking and all of that. And yeah, the struggle we carry is the food sovereignty struggle. And what we do is mostly reproducing heirloom peasant seeds and fighting the man.
Great, thank you. And I've actually grown some of your seeds in Scotland from.
They worked?
They work, not everything, but some things worked very well,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's been a big escalation in Lebanon. There's been bombing in the south since the war in Gaza started, but in the past couple of months, it's really escalated. Could you tell us a bit about what the current situation's like there now?
Yeah, I can say a few words about that. So the whole south uh, is unlivable now. What we call the south is the area that starts after the Litani River. So that's, I'm not sure of the numbers, but that's probably 1/8 of the Lebanese surface, I would say, 1/9 of it, something like that. And most people living there have moved because of the bombings, and the Israeli occupation forces are pushing more and more. So it's getting more and more violent. The areas that were supposed to be safe, between brackets, are not safe anymore, which means a bit more than just the borderline. Let's say the villages on the borderline were known not to be safe from the beginning of the new hostilities, like the new season, September season. And yeah, so this is the situation of the south. There's probably 1 million people displaced now between the Bekaa and the south. In the Bekaa, northern Bekaa is almost emptied out. So everyone from Baalbek and the region have fled either to even farther up north, so Akkar, Tripoli, all of that, or down to the center of the Bekaa, where our farm is in Saad Nail. So you have a big part of this population that has been crammed up into smaller surfaces, let's say. And then you have the southern suburbs of Beirut, which have been pounded for a while now. There is a very big destruction rate. Like I don't have the numbers, but visually you can already see it's a huge devastation thing. Like whole neighborhoods, whole blocks have been destroyed. And so basically right now the safe areas, again between brackets, are maybe, let's say, half of the country. So the other half is impraticable, so you cannot really reach, and the occupation is moving forward. So every time there's new targets, now we're out of the principle they were pretending to follow, which was to attack Hezbollah strongholds and all of that. So there's a lot more civilian casualties. There's also casualties from the Lebanese army, from the UNIFIL, the blue helmets. It is a little bit of mayhem. And at the same time, because we have the inherent schizophrenia of the region, there are all the areas that are safe where life goes on with this very weird stomach feeling that everything is bad, but you do not see it directly. And yeah, this is very quickly how things are from from our perspective.
I mean, Dahi has been having some of the worst of the attacks, hasn't it?
Yeah,
And it's a very,
yeah.
very, for those who don't know Beirut, it's a very, very densely populated area. It comprises a number of municipalities and informal settlements, and also two major Palestinian refugee camps, Borj al Brahni and Shatila. So it's a very densely populated area that's being targeted and quite indiscriminate. The bombing there.
Yeah.
What's the feeling in Beirut, Abir?
I wanted also just to add something because I feel it's also, just important, just a tiny thing, because um, because they're also, head hunting, like what happened yesterday. So even important people in Hezbollah, not important people in Hezbollah, are being headhunted. So what is happening is that usually you had a bit of, okay, we know this area is being targeted, but they are also targeting other areas in Beirut. And yesterday, Marilis was targeted, and also I don't know the name, like next to Mathaf as well.
Ras
So also
al-Naba.
just Ras al-Naba, exactly. Kola before, they follow cars, and and they like kill them in areas where supposedly are supposed to be safe. فهيك just also to say, and no, because usually we're used to hearing that they're bombing Dahiya, but they're also bombing other places. I thought that it was also important to say this because it led a bit to a place where even I, to be honest, sometimes feel scared of going out of a Christian area. They're like actively doing this. And which also led to now people not accepting displaced people, even not only because of their nationality, but like people are not accepting displaced people. Not only so you have criteria, but if you're Syrian, if you're Palestinian, it's very hard to find a shelter. But also if you're Shia, so in our area they don't allow. Or you have like a lot of questioning if they're going to allow Shia people to rent houses because they're scared of being bombed. So
where are those people going then?
Hala, it's you have schools did open, but it was not enough. You have people who rented houses, and also Lebanese people took advantage of the situation and really raised the rent quite a lot. So a house that used to be before for like $250 is now for $1,000, and they ask you for like 6 months in advance. And there was a lot of people on the streets, but they're also being forced out of the streets It's just a very chaotic thing to watch, because it's not, I think for me personally, the shock was, we know what Israel is, and especially also having, since the start of the genocide has been for a year. So we expected Israel to do this, but we did not expect what Lebanese people will do to each other. Personally, for me, really, this was the heartbreaking part. I expected Israel to bomb here and there. I did not expect Lebanese people to be so selective.
So we
and
really
to,
see that sectarian divide, even in
Exactly.
terms of who is getting assistance and who isn't. And certainly, I mean, some communities have been very much impacted because there's so many Syrian refugees in Lebanon. And even in this situation, they've been targeted and facing racial discrimination and not being allowed into shelters. And in fact, many of them have returned to Syria, and they're taking a very dangerous route to get into the north of Syria to avoid Assad-controlled areas, because we know that many people that went back to Syria from Lebanon during the current conflict have already been arrested and detained. So they're in a very dangerous situation, not safe in Lebanon, and certainly not safe in Syria. Another community that's been badly affected has been domestic workers. We saw at the start of the conflict that many people that have domestic workers in their home just left them to fend for themselves, basically. They fled, and there were people from African communities just gathering on the beach, not knowing where to go. Could you tell us a bit about what's happening with that community?
From what I know, and I don't know, Serge also, more. There was, honestly, I think all of us, there was a state of panic, but I feel like now, almost 2 months into it, things have been a bit more organized. And I know that a lot of people, like in the beginning, because of like the overwhelming numbers, assistance took some time. But from what I know is that now there are a lot of shelters running for migrant workers, and certain NGOs, but also individuals, are making sure that they are getting help. Maybe not, according to the international standards of what it should be, but trying as much as possible to provide. But this is what I know. I don't know, Serge, is that you want to add something?
Yes, it's been more of the self managing thing. So what has worked, especially for the Sudanese and the Bangladeshi communities I've met with, is that they were able to organize within their community and then connect, because we have the contacts, we are connected in a way or another through the struggle of the workers, etc. We were able to have this kind of grassroots reaction to the problem. However, the problem was so intense at first that you don't know what to do where, everything is happening at the same time. People are leaving, everyone is on the road, there's huge car traffic jams. At the same time, people who live in other people's, the workers who live in other people's home find themselves doubly in a double problem, because they depend through the problematic kafala slavery system on those people who they live and they use their houses, and then they depend also on help and all of that. So they're blocked on two sides. So organizing was complicated, but then when it started, just with all the self-organizing groups that actually, I don't know, Abir, what you think, but the way I saw it was that the reaction of the grassroots movements all over the country was pretty effective. We were able to have canteens very quickly. We were able to have shelters very quickly, but the shelters, of course, was something that ran out quite fast as well. All of this to say that there was the grassroots movement taking care of whatever they could. But at the same time, we are still in this system where there are many first-class citizens and second-class citizens, etc., etc. Even within the displaced community, from one religion, let's say, there's also the class system that divided. So I see it up here in the north, where we have. Yeah, again, I don't have the numbers, but at least double the population that usually lives between Tripoli, Zgharta, and Kura. And it's very obvious that the poor people were sent to schools and sheltering zones with very low uh, everything from electricity to water to everything. And then those who can afford it, they rented houses in Ehden and, they're good. So it's all of this at the same time, right? So in all of this, you take the situation of a migrant worker whose passport is being held by their, I'm going to say former employers, because I don't think anyone is working anymore. So you have one more layer to the situation. But to be kind of, unhealthily optimistic, the reaction, the ground reaction was there. Like it kind of reminded me very, very briefly and weirdly of the revolution, when people actually did stuff together for something more than just their small little persons. But of course, it's a completely different context and situation and ability to get to anything.
And are many of these groups that are self-organizing now groups that grew up out of the recent uprising in Lebanon?
Yeah. Most of the people we've been in contact with are people we are already in contact with since the revolution. So it's mostly the same groups, those who remain, because maybe 90% of the people have already left since 2019. But those who remain have the good reflexes, and I'm okay. We're always in this country, we're always obligated to do the government's work because the government is busy robbing us. So now is the complete prise de conscience that we've been doing this for so many years, and it's not our job unless we are the government. So there is at the same time being completely disgusted of having to do it all over again. But then at the same time, now we have experience. We are quick. We know how to talk to each other. We are all connected. We know everyone knows everyone. So we have this network of trust that is deep and pretty solid. I'm an optimist. So I would say it's all wonderful. It's not, but
Well, it's great that those initiatives are happening, and I suppose the situation in Lebanon, even before the conflict, was extremely dire because of the massive economic situation. The port explosion had such an impact. Has the government's ability to respond been much weaker then in this situation than it was, say, in 2006 when Israel invaded? Do you see a difference in how people are self-organizing given the experience of the revolution?
Abir, you want to say something? Uh, okay. For me, there's a huge difference in almost everything. Like the scale of the attacks and the bombings are nothing. Like we've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. In 2006, I was there probably the first 2 weeks in Beirut, then went up north after it. The bombings were different, weapons used were different. Now we see something that is of a completely other scale. There's bombings all around the farm, all around. Like in the area of the farm, maybe 6 kilometers to 8 kilometers. and we hear them as if they were here, like the buildings tremble, all of that. So the scale of the violence is very different. The situation of the government is very different because it's a تصريف أعمال government. It's the government that's just supposed to take care of no I don't know how you call it. Like they're not supposed to take care of everything. They just have to do the daily work, and they cannot even do that. So we've seen, okay, there is mobilization in the most of the public schools, but then again, you have the problem that if the public schools have refugees, how do kids go to school? So there's this whole thing where kids are learning online in a country where the internet is shit because the government did not do any effort. And has actually stolen the fiber optic links. But the whole failed state is 100 times more obvious now than in 2006. There were still institutions back then. It was honestly, it was completely different. It's completely
Yeah,
different.
also, this is following the crisis, the economic crisis. This is
Exactly.
following 5 years of utter
Meltdown.
disasters. And then this at the end. So they're for sure not prepared at all. And also like a tiny thing, because so many things have happened that we forgot the pagers and the talkie-walkies. And the attack on this was actually to target people in Hezbollah that usually are responsible for taking care of like the civil
it's medics, it's
exactly that I think this was exactly before the complete the expansion of the war. This happened right at the beginning, and then there was the expansion, which I think was a tactical move, because now usually Hezbollah doesn't have the power and doesn't have the means to also help on the ground. Maybe they still do, but really nothing compared to 2006. So there's actually, I don't know what they say on the news, but the government is really, they just opened the school. And actually, I recently found out that the government still didn't declare a state of emergency, which is for me outrageous. This is why you have people students in private schools still get to go to private schools, whereas students in public schools don't have the privilege, which is absurd. To say in a country we're not even on the same page of saying this is a state of emergency. They're bombing half of the country, but this is still not a state of emergency. I don't know what is for them, but just to know that they're really not prepared at all.
And like you say, with the pager attacks, they took out many medics. But we've also seen this specifically as a tactic by Israel to target medical and rescue workers, hospitals, and also journalists, of course, because Israel doesn't want witnesses to its crimes and wants to ensure that the Israeli narrative is dominant. We've seen that tactic very much in Gaza, and now we're seeing it in Lebanon. So tell us a bit about some of the activities that you're involved in, how you're organizing now.
Yeah, sorry, and I'm just because now actually they just hit another region that is like 5 minutes away from here now as we are speaking. So it's just absurd. The whole thing, me being now on the phone and this is happening, life is just absurd. But just to say that, I think for me personally, and also for us in the hostel, there was we fulfill our duty, and I mean it from the heart, that this is, I think I speak for myself and also like everyone, all the communities around, that we do whatever, wherever we can fill. Specifically for us in the hostel, we collaborated with different groups on different things. We don't we try not to really publicize it because of where we are. We're like really next to the fascists, like a few seconds away from each other. It's a nice picture because then you see them with their flags and their people, and they're always like looking at the streets and controlling, and then you see us like in the hostel and full of colors and stuff, and it's a nice image actually. But so we try as much as possible not to like disseminate more information. But we have mainly collaborated with a group of friends that now became an independent group called تنسيقية شعبية. And it also transformed, I think, with time. But the main purpose was to actually work with people who will not benefit from the NGO helps, the help of the NGO, because of the whole, the NGOs don't want to help Syrians. Most of them don't want to help the LGBTQ community and the migrants. We mainly focused on this, but it's not, I would like to just be clear that it's not the hostel leading on this. We are collaborating with different groups. And this is what we mainly do with like in-kind donation, medication, food. We redistribute food, and yeah, basically that's what we're doing at the moment.
And you have a fundraising initiative for this, Abir, I know. So maybe
Yes.
we can put that in the show notes so that people can see how they can support the work that you're doing there.
Yeah, that would be lovely for sure.
And Serge, what do your activities look like now? Has work stopped on the farm, or how are you organizing?
Work has not stopped. It is still and always a priority to produce food. So regardless of everything, we planted the 2 hectares of the farm, and we're working the land of the other 25 hectares we will be able to plant this year. So we're still doing this, and it's more important than ever. We are also able to distribute dry food from our stocks from the summer's harvest, and we can only do that because we have a summer harvest, which means we were prepared last year for the point of it was to have seeds and food for everyone. And it turns out in a way or another, intuitively, we knew at some point this was going to be needed. So we distribute around 400, 300 kilos of dry food weekly. So it's mostly local stuff from the culture cuisine. So it's lentils and fava beans and and hummus and all of that. And we're working directly with canteens. So with each canteen, there's a few. Some in Beirut, some in Tripoli, some in Zgharta, some in Baalbek as well. The one from Baalbek, we lost news last week, so we don't know right now where they are, what's the situation. But we're also working with the local movements, the local grassroots movements, to be as helpful as possible. So sometimes there is no canteens. We organize with other people, donors, people who want to help, etc., to set up kitchens. When there's villages who are cut off, we were able to get them a few, the basics, the essentials, so they can at least cook 3 meals a day. And that's mostly it. It's mostly we need to produce food, so we're doing that, and we need to deliver, and we're doing that. Most of the admin team is in France right now, and so there's the farm team that is still on the farm, and me, I'm between Tripoli, Beirut, and Saad Nail, and so on and so on.
Yes, I recently met some of your friends in
Yeah,
France, and they've
you
got
saw
stuck
them.
there. Unfortunately, I saw them more recently than you.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
so also we work together through and we've been working together over the past couple of years trying to create a network called the People's Want, which for people who don't know, it's a transnational network that's trying to promote internationalism from below and mutual aid and solidarity. And actually our first big action is to support you guys and other friends in Lebanon. Do you know a bit about what's being planned for that? Serge, I know you've been involved in
Yeah.
those discussions.
Yeah, so we've been talking about it. I haven't, we were supposed to talk with Abir the other day, but then I got taken by life and you also, I suppose, Abir. So it's very complicated to see each other these days. But the idea is to have one day or one week of solidarity all around the globe. So everyone that is in a way or another involved with the People's Want Network would set up an event, a movie screening, a protest, whatever they want or can do, and link it to the main problematic at hand, which is the genocide in Palestine and the destruction in Lebanon. Mostly the destruction in Lebanon right now because it's I don't know, it's a very sad thing to say, but it's more of actuality right now. Like it's still buzzing a little bit. It's terrifying to say, even to speak these words. Like anyways. So yeah, the idea is to have events all over the country, all over the globe, and maybe some crowdfundings, a lot of advocacy, a lot of information, so that the world actually understands what is really happening to normal people in the West Asia region. So yeah, basically that's it. If you're somewhere in a country where you will not be shot for protesting, I say go ahead and do it. Raise a flag or two, and yeah, at least.
And that week of actions taking place in December, do you know which dates it is?
I'm not sure anymore. It was supposed to be the second or third week of December. I really can't remember, honestly. Let me look in the conversations.
I know that
Uh,
there's events planned for Mexico, Santiago, a number of places in France, and Berlin and Beirut already.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Wait, this is it's theoretically it's from the 14th to the 21st of December.
Okay. So it will be
Okay, and
nice.
so
It will be
yeah.
nice to see those joint actions and really a bit more focus on Lebanon because Lebanon hasn't got the kind of focus that Palestine's received, I think. What are your feelings about that?
No, it's still fresh, you know.
Mm,
Palestine has been is being murdered for the past 80 years now, you know. Us,
yes.
it's only 62, 63 years. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I need to make jokes, like dark jokes about this because it's a completely absurd situation in any case. Like,
Problematic, Serge.
yeah, yeah, it's
But
crazy.
I remember when this escalation started in September, and I reached out to you, Abir, and just to see how you're coping with the situation. And you said something to me that really hit me. You said, Leila, we've seen this already with Syria, with Palestine, and there's nothing special about us. I just feel that it's our turn now. And this really hit me because, I sometimes think our failure to really stop the genocide that was happening in Syria or in other countries, a failure of people to really raise their voice about the genocide of Rohingya. This has emboldened states to act with impunity. We've
Yeah.
seen the Assad regime has carried out such horrific human rights violations and war crimes, and there was not a big response for the left. So what extent do you feel that weakness has impacted on the fact that Israel feels emboldened to act with impunity now?
I think they, and I remember also, يعني, let's not mention everything that happened in the last 75 years, but also, I remember the first time they hit a hospital in Gaza was outrageous, but the world accepted it, and I think, and then looking at it now for the last year, I feel they've raised the level of how much we accept violence. And also, like, if you see it, how people, like what you see on TV, like I saw like a small, I don't really watch interviews. I don't really watch anything anymore, but I saw like a small clip of someone who told in an interview on TV, I hope your beeper doesn't go on. And this was normal, just because you don't agree with the person. خلاص we've يعني فلت الملأ in Arabic we say no يعني there's no limit anymore to violence even within people. I just want to say also just a reminder, like not even in like talk about Israel, just before the start of the genocide, there was a rise in also very racist, fascist groups against Syrians, and I remember on the night of the Eid, the Fitr Eid, they threw we don't know who, but they threw a Molotov at the Syrian family's house across from the hostel. And it was a very sad, brutal moment to look at all of this and to see like to which level of humanity has degraded, because for us in our culture before, we used to celebrate each other's holidays. You would never attack, and even if you want to attack, you would never do it on Eid. This is the big Muslim holiday. And to see that a family was attacked on Eid when all the kids are they're all dressed up and excited to have their little fireworks, and it is just a small testament of how much we don't care. We have this the violence has exceeded all levels, honestly, and I feel like they've set the bar so high, and it's gonna keep getting higher and higher and higher.
That's really my fear
Yeah.
too. I feel that we're entering a period where such extreme levels of state violence against civilians has been completely normalized. And there isn't the outrage now when, like you say, when hospitals are being bombed, when journalists are being targeted. And also when it was the pager attack, that was my first thought. Oh my God, they found another way that states can just get rid of undesirable populations. And there wasn't the mass outrage. People were remarking on it as if this was, some James Bond kind of moment. It was celebrated.
Yes.
And it's horrific. Yes.
Yeah. And that the pager attack was as big in terms of casualties as the Beirut explosion. This was
wow.
This was so big, and then to see that some people celebrated this just because they are from the opposite political party is just so sad. And in no words, and I am beyond heartbroken. This is what I said. And at the level of humanity, and this is international. Also, what the rise in what happened in London, I think maybe 2 months ago, when also there was the rise of Islamophobia, the attacks on anyone that they suspected looked like a Muslim, and I feel they've set the bar quite.
We saw in Britain I think it was a couple of months ago, quite extreme levels of violence and racist mobs on the street, and they were attacking mosques, they were attacking Muslims, and they were actually set fire to hotels where refugees were inside. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is all linked, you know. I don't think you can just look at what is happening just in Lebanon or just all of it is just one big link, you know, to because when you accept when you accept the pager attack, when you accept the bombing a hospital, when you accept killing paramedics, you will accept people being, you know, like followed to a hotel just because they look Muslim. You know, it's all like one big link, I feel.
So, in terms of solidarity, what do you think are the best ways that people outside Lebanon can support at the moment? What are the priorities?
Yeah, I think there's two things, and I want to link it to what you just said, Abir, which is extremely important because we are getting to a point, and Leila, you said it also, the dehumanization is it's crazy. Like fascists are only able to do this because they do not consider us human. And so maybe the first thing people can do outside of Lebanon is to remind others that there are humans here, uh, just like them, you know, that are that are in this pretty dark situations. So I believe talking about it as much as possible, being as vocal as possible, being as insolent as possible, you know, uh, because honestly, this is the century. It's being decided right now. The what it's going to look like this period, this epoch of monsters, you know, and you see them. They are the monsters are in charge, are in control. You know, from Netanyahu to Trump to Putin to Bashar to cuter monsters like the French guy, Macron. Yeah, you see what I mean? It's a phase. I have this feeling that um, everywhere, those who are using violence are those who are allowed to continue being in charge, even if they're a fucking minority in reality. Like the peoples are, we can actually literally eat them, you know. Uh, but to come back to what can be done, it's for me, it's two things: be vocal as much as possible and insolent, and don't be afraid of talking about it because it's a reality. Genocide is a reality. Occupation is a reality. It isn't an opinion of who, what. It is real. It is what we are living every day. Destruction and murder and killing is it's a fucking reality. We're under it now. So there is no there shouldn't be any fear of being called an anti-Semite if you are telling that Israel is doing a genocide. We need to get over this. We need to have the narrative right. We need to to show that the truth is actually real, you know? So that's one, and the other one is send money. We can
We'll
use it.
definitely put your initiatives in the show notes so that people know what the fundraising calls are and how they can support.
Can I, sorry, because just also something that you can do, I feel, is uh, uh, we all need to be radical, Amjad. We cannot afford not to be radical
True
anymore.
that.
And I always say this, like, if you're a dancer, if you're a clown, if you're a farmer, whatever you are, we need to be radical, you know, in our politics. And um, yeah, and yeah, just like keep our voices heard however you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And remember the never again idea, like especially this is what drives me crazy in the let's call it the mainstream European and even the left and all of that. Like the never again, why does it apply in specific places, but it doesn't apply to us?
It's
Like
never
when,
again to certain
yeah,
populations, but not to
how
humanity as a whole.
how come? How come? So yeah, if you want to help out people dying in Palestine, maybe They just figure out where they stand from this.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to talk about or share with us?
I don't know. Maybe also remind ourselves and everyone who's listening that there is love, you know. There is rage, but there is love. So yeah, love and rage is here. Let's use it in a way or another, you know.
Well, I'm so grateful to Abir. Would you like to
No,
say
no,
something?
not at all.
I'm so grateful to both of you for joining us today, because I know you're in a very living a nightmare situation and have so many demands on your time. So I really appreciate you coming and taking the time to talk to us. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having us.